Good morning. Welcome to Voices of the Festival. I hope you're doing very well. I'm here with my little doggy, with Roxy, and I'm still in San Francisco, and it's a beautiful morning here. It's early here. It's 7 a.m., 10 a.m. Eastern, and we are very happy to have Kyaunnee Richardson. Let me find her. There we go. And I invited her, so hopefully she will be able to join us. There we go. Hi. How you doing, Kenny?
Hi,
How you
I'm good, and
doing?
you?
Good, good,
Good,
good.
good, good.
Where are you?
I am in Miami, Florida right now. I'm home and I'm currently at the library now because my internet at home is down, so you have to bear
Oh,
with me.
okay, okay. Good, good, good. I'm glad that you were able to join us anyway, and thank you for going to the library. I was going to say this early. I mean, it's not early for you guys. I mean, it's a very normal time.
It's only
It's
it's only 10 o'clock on the
exactly.
East Coast.
So how is it? How is it there? How is the weather in Miami? Beautiful as
Oh,
always.
it's been pretty good. This has to be the first, for at least in my memory, that it hasn't been so humid.
Okay.
I mean, the Fourth of July was pretty good this year because the other couple of years it's just been dreadful, but this year was pretty good.
Do you do any special celebration for the fourth or?
Well, my family came over and that's what we just hung out together and just spent some time. Some of us we hadn't seen each other in over 2 years because of COVID, so it was
Oh,
nice
wow.
to be able to get together and see family again. Yeah.
The immediate family or your
Immediate family.
okay. Ah,
Yeah.
good. I'm glad that you were able to travel and gather. Where is your home other than Miami? You're coming
Um,
from because you say your family came, so
yeah, so it's like they're all over the place. Like as far as like Seattle, the other well, like that's not immediate family, that's like a extended family. I think the farthest for us immediate family would have to be Virginia, if I'm not mistaken, or Maryland. It's around those two.
okay.
So yeah.
And where were you born?
I was born in Orlando.
Oh, okay. So you're from Florida.
Yes, I'm a Florida girl.
And did you grow up in Orlando?
No, I grew up in Miami. I was born in Orlando, but I grew up here in
Okay.
Miami. Yeah.
And we did meet in Orlando. So that's the first time we worked together. We were doing
Clear
Fledermaus
mouth.
with
Yeah.
um, Orlando Opera. Opera. So and so it's really great to work together. And since then we've done several projects together.
Hmm.
We almost did. Così fan tutte in Williamsburg. By the way, Opera in
Oh,
Williamsburg is watching from Israel, Naama. Hi,
it's
Naama.
5 p.m. over there. Good
I
Lord.
know. How was that experience?
That was a lot of fun. I was so happy to be back in Williamsburg. The last time I was there, I think I was like what, between 7 and 10. We went to go to Jamestown actually. And we were there to go see the Jamestown settlement, to go see where the Pocahontas statue is and everything. I'm a big like history buff person, so there's a funny story behind that because when the film came out in 95, the Disney film came out in 95, I wanted to see what this if it was true or not. So of course, the film is not accurate, but my family was like, we need to teach you about this. So we went and we saw. I was disappointed, but I'm glad that I got a chance to know about her history and her real story. And then we went to Williamsburg as well. And then some years later, we went to Yorktown because I wanted to know about the American Revolution. So I went to all three of them. But going back to Cozy fan tutte, it was a wonderful production. I love the cast. We just like kind of meld together as a family. It was wonderful to work with Paul Nadler again. The last time I worked with him was in 2017, in New York City with was it the International Vocal Arts Institute, and yeah, it was really fun. A lot of rest, but really fun.
Great.
Got a chance to eat a lot of chocolate cake in that production, so it was great.
Oh, wow. That's
Yeah.
always good when you have to eat the props.
Yeah.
Great. And well, tell us about your story. Where you said that you were born in Orlando,
Mhm.
and when did you start music?
So music came, it's always been in the house, but I've been singing since the age of 2. My mother, like, she would like put like a cassette tape record at the head of the bed, and I would listen to everything from like classical music to like the old Disney, and Whitney Houston was in there as well. But it wasn't until around the age of 14, 15 years old that I discovered Phantom or Phantom of the Opera, which is the musical, and I was so curious about the show and the music, and I was like, what is this? I mean, it's been in my house again, like I said, it's always been there. I just never really paid attention to it. It wasn't until the movie came out in 2004, and then I was like, I want to look into this even more, which I did. And then the following year in 2005, the Hurricane Wilma was about to hit South Florida, and my dad took me to go see the Broadway tour when it was in Fort Lauderdale, and we saw that afternoon. We got in the car and we went to Jacksonville to escape the hurricane. So I got a chance to see that. And it was at that moment, I went on the internet later on, and we had dial-up at the time, if anybody remembers what that was. And I did my research on opera singers like Luciano Pavarotti, Domingo Carreras, Leontine Price, Marian Anderson, and it just led me to all of these great singers. And that's when I'm like, yeah, I want to do this for the rest of my life. This is what I want to do. And I never looked back after that. I went um, from studying voice with my chorus teacher in high school. And then I graduated from high school and I went to the New World School of the Arts here in Miami. And then after my 4 years there, I went to Florida State University and got my master's. And now I'm studying with Birgit Fioravante. And I have not looked back ever since that moment I made that decision. So you can thank Phantom for that.
Right? Yeah, I wonder how many people will Phantom will bring to opera in a way. I mean, it's it's I don't I, we know that we wouldn't call it opera necessary, but from our point of view, but it's pretty operatic in terms of the fact that there's no dialogues and it's sung throughout, and it could be sung really really operatic.
Mhm.
Let me tell you, Savannah Voice Festival has a strong connection with Phantom because
Wow.
one of the main, I mean, actually, Pianchi is been a graduate from Savannah,
That's awesome.
so Carmo that has
Yeah,
acted in Savannah many times. So
I've
it's
seen him on Broadway. He's wonderful.
yeah, he's very very operatic, and
Mhm.
so is Raquel Suarez, and I mean they were all former students of mine, Raquel and Megan
Okay.
Picherno. So they are all MSM graduates, and actually the three of them, the three of them have never done musicals before they
Yeah.
did Phantom. So they were truly operatic singers completely. So it is very interesting that I'm glad that also it brought you to the world of opera.
Hmm.
And were you so that was before college, right? That's were in high school.
Yeah, this was in high school that I discovered Phantom. Yeah, and
And
was really obsessed with it.
by
I
the way,
still
you're
am.
very good at remembering dates because you remember very securely which year was that. And I remember it was in 2004 and in 2000.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
It's a very strong impression. It's something I try to like anything that was like a significant in my life, I try to always remember it. So if anybody would ask me like what happened in blah blah blah, I was like, I can tell you exactly when. So and then others that kind of remind me of that is that I have like little memorabilias as well. I still have the ticket stub from when my dad took me to the Broward Center. So I kept that as like a memento. And then when I went back to go see it again, I was like, can I get this for the same price? And they're like, no, prices went up. I said, okay, it's fine. Don't matter. So it's fine.
That was a little up. Yeah. And
Yeah.
that's great. I mean, that's cute. And I'm glad that you like it so much.
Mhm.
How did you how do you get so good with languages? Because you came late to them.
Oh gosh, so languages. So I did study Spanish in high school for 4 years. It didn't stick, but
Right.
I apologize, maestro.
No, no.
Um, because like my dad was the one that really pushed me. He was just like, you need to learn how to speak Spanish. And I was like, okay, Dad. But it didn't really latch on to me as much. And it wasn't until after grad school, that I did, since I had more time. What I've noticed in my track was that when I'm in school, I try to be really, really focused on what I have to do. But when it comes down to something as tedious as languages, you need more time with that. 2 semesters is just not enough to really absorb the language. So I took it upon myself to just get Duolingo. It's a free app. And I just was starting to just like pay attention, like how do they pronounce the words? How is the phrasing? How is the flow of the language? And then I even challenged myself even further. I said, what happens if I decided to just watch one of my favorite shows in Italian? And I found a cartoon that I really like, and I just started watching it in Italian. I said, "Oh, that's how that is." And then for German, it was the same way, except I didn't watch well, I watched like fairy tales in German, since the Grimm fairy tales is very steeped in that. So Aschenputtel or Cinderella was a
Mhm.
main one, and there's like a ton of movies on Aschenputtel just by itself. And yeah, I didn't get the language immediately, but I started to hear the rhythm of of the language. And again, I applied it to my Duolingo. And as for French, French was tricky. I had to actually just watch a lot of interviews in French. And again, I went back to using my Duolingo as well. And then I actually found a podcast on oh dear, on Spotify that's called Coffee Break Italian, Coffee Break German, and Coffee Break French. I'm sure there's Spanish in there too. And it's basically this guy who's pretty much, he just knows a lot of languages, and he just sits there and he breaks everything down for you. It's like lesson by lesson, and you just sit there. You can be driving and you can learn pretty much how to hold a conversation in about maybe a day or so. And it's really fun. But I like my Duolingo. I'm happy that I discovered it now that I have more time to focus on it. I'm like, okay, I'm getting better little by little. And then I challenge myself to actually now pick up a score and say, let's see how much have I've learned in Italian. Like pick up Lucia or something. And then I'm like, oh, I got about maybe 55% of it, and let's go back and review again. So, yeah, that's how I've been challenging myself to get my languages together. Yeah.
That's great.
Mhm.
Howard does Duolingo uh, since, I mean, many years. I mean, he makes a point of doing it every day,
Yep.
and he has done a strike of, I think, over 1,000 days already. So that's
Oh,
more.
he's up there with me then.
Yeah, almost like 3 years. So I know
Wow.
about Duolingo, but I haven't really done it. But
It's tedious though, because there's an alert on your phone and they're just like, you have to do your Duolingo today. And you're like, oh, I have no time. But you have to, because if you don't do it, then you've broken your stride of like 1,000 days and you have to start all over again, which is annoying. It's happened to me once and I was like, I'm never doing that again. So
also you are in the strike of trying to,
yeah.
to do it every day. Good
Yeah.
for you. Well, that's a lot of day. I mean, the good thing is you can do it anytime, and it doesn't take all that long.
Yeah.
Um, if you do it, so.
Hmm.
But good. That is fun. That is a fun thing to do. And how was the Italian for Così? I mean, that, as you say, there's a lot of Italian there. So
Yeah, the Italian and così, it's like a different type of Italian from what I've learned on Duolingo, but
right.
just knowing the flow of the language, I was able to be like, okay, I got a pretty good handle on it until Maestro was just like, you might want to go back and fix a couple of things. And I was like, a couple or a few, let me know, several actually. So
Right.
I got better at it when I started getting into the staging. And then I was like, oh, that's what they want. This is what they're looking for. Okay, all right. And I had to really there was a good recording that I listened to that I can't remember. I think it was Cecilia Bartoli's recording that I was listening to really understand what the whole arc of Despina. And then I was like, okay, I think I have an understanding. I think I have a handle on this now. So I mean, it was great.
Good.
It's really great. Yeah.
And then going back to talk about your all your studies. So you went to your first school was in Miami?
Hmm.
No, that was it was Miami because you said that your master's was in
Florida
USC, right?
State in Tallahassee. Yeah, it's still in
Oh,
Florida.
Florida State. That's great. And the undergrad was in Miami.
Yes, New World downtown. Yeah. Yeah, that one was so the story behind that was I had my heart set on going to Roosevelt University in Chicago.
Why?
And
Why?
because there was why? Because there was a teacher I wanted to study with there. And I wanted to try my hand at not being home for 2 years. Oh no, sorry, 4 years. And my dad was like, number one, that's too far. Number two, it's so expensive. Number three, it's still expensive. So no, you're not going. I was like, that's right, because you're paying for this. Oh dear. So, um, sorry, not Roosevelt. I apologize. That was for grad school. It was Juilliard, which was I want my heart set on for getting my bachelor's. I was thoroughly rejected from Juilliard when coming from high school to, thinking I was going to have a chance to get into one of the most prestigious schools in the country. And I was like beside myself. I was like, I didn't get into Juilliard and everything. And then my mom did her research and she's just like, there is a school here in Miami that is actually, they dubbed it the Juilliard of South Florida. I didn't think there was such a thing because I was like, there's nothing that can top Juilliard. Oh, well, New World popped up and my mom's like, just give it a chance and you'll see. And it turned out to be one of the best decisions that I made. And I not only was I able to stay home and save money for grad school, but I was able to glean a lot from the teachers there. And I jumped into this conservatory pretty much without having a strong of a musical background because a lot of people who came to New World came from like magnet school programs that had a better fine arts department. I didn't have my school, my high school, Day Christian School, which is again in Miami. It didn't have a strong fine arts program. Their focus was on football and sports. That was the drive from the school. Fine arts was kind of like a last minute thing. And I had to really dig out a lot of the classical music in my high school. So coming in, I had no theory background. I had no ear training background. I had none of that stuff. So I had to play catch up for about a year. But I got it. And then even piano was like interesting. My former piano teacher can give you stories, but I learned, and but I challenged myself even when I was in high school. I wanted to get better, so I would just sit on the piano and I just try to play something by ear. I think I kind of lost that edge a little bit now because I don't sit at the piano and do that anymore. But I would like talking about Phantom. I didn't have the music in front of me, so I would just listen to the soundtrack and I said, well, that sounds like it's in that key. And then I would play it and they're like, how did you do that? I was like, I don't know. I just guessed. But then I had to learn how to read music. So that was I had to do that. That came with my training. But then when I got to Florida State, again, my father intervened and I wanted to go to Roosevelt University because there was a teacher I wanted to study there with, and I wanted to try my hand at being at home for not being at home for 2 years. My dad was like, no, too far, too expensive, and too expensive. So um, we, I auditioned, I think at I sent my application, I know, to UM. I did send my application to Cincinnati. I sent my application and I auditioned at Roosevelt. And then I sent my application at UCF, and Florida State was my application. And UM said no. Cincinnati, I never, to this day, Cincinnati never gave me a response.
Wow.
Never, never gave me a response. So I don't know if I even got in or not, but I'm assuming I didn't. So, but I never knew. So,
Ah, that's unusual.
yeah, very just beware, guys. And UCF had a brand new music program, but it wasn't what I wanted. It wasn't strong enough to give me what I needed. And then my father drove me to Tallahassee, and he took one look at the campus, and he's like, "Yeah, you're going to go to school here." And I fought him tooth and nail. I was like, "I'm not going to school in Tallahassee. I don't want to go to Tallahassee. I want to go somewhere else where it's like, big city culture, something like a New York kind of thing, but Chicago." But he's like, "Nope, nope, this is where you're going to go to school." So he won out and I got accepted into to Florida State University. I got a teacher's assistantship. And I studied with Shirley Close at the time for 2 years, and it was a good experience. I'm glad that I went, even though against my better judgment, but I'm glad that I went. And yeah, it was fun being at Florida State. It's fun. I'm
What
a Seminole for life now, so.
before that, so this New World School is related to the orchestra.
No, it's not related to the New World Symphony. I thought it was, but it's not. But my former piano teacher was a fellow at the New World Symphony Orchestra, so that was the only correlation I knew. But I don't. I'm
Okay.
but I'm pretty sure maybe now there it might be connected to the symphony because the I think and my friend Kiara is on here right now watching. Hi Kiara.
Yeah.
If correct me if I'm wrong, Kiara. I think the dean is associated with the New World Symphony. I could be wrong, but I don't know. So
Okay. Good. And then so then you went to USF and no, no USF,
FSU.
FSU. Yeah. Yeah, I get. I'm not good with acronyms. So Florida State. And so Shirley and was Shirley also already teaching at Manhattan School, or because that's how I know Shirley Close, or was she teaching both places, or she left Florida State to go to Manhattan?
She left Florida State. So about I'd say a year and a half after I'd left, she went to Manhattan.
Okay,
That's what I understand.
so that's about at least 5 years, or no more, I would say, right?
Yeah, I
When?
think it's more than that. I graduated in 2014 from Florida State.
All right, so yeah, so about 8 years. So yeah, I will think that it was about at least 2 years before the pandemic
Hmm.
that she started. So,
Hmm.
but I'm not sure. Oh, that's great. Good, good. Yeah, she's
Yes.
fantastic,
Oh yeah.
and she's famous for being like a teacher for big voices. And so that's really and
Yeah.
how do you how do you how do you sell on your fach? How do you explore what repertoire you do and everything? Because I mean, I well, I've seen you doing high stuff
Hmm.
and
Well, you saw the
very
Fledermaus, so you know.
yeah, very good in the comedic repertoire. I'm sure you're very good at drama. I haven't seen you in drama yet.
Yeah.
But how do you? I mean, I always said to everyone that asks me, I said, you should hire. I mean, you should do anything that they hire for, right?
Hmm.
So we can always discuss. I mean, no one is going to ask you something totally crazy in general. I mean, if that's the case, you can always say no. But
Right.
uh, and in a way, I had the feeling that one is making their fach based on what actually they hire them for.
Right.
Because okay, so if they think I should be doing this, then well, let's try it.
Hmm.
How did you find your fach?
So this goes back to high school, actually. I think in going back to Phantom because it's I wanted to do the role of Christine and I was like I want to do that. I want to do that. But and that's when you kind of like play with the acting and the dancing and all that fun stuff. But it wasn't until when I read the book somewhere in there that's when I started like finding out about other operas like Romeo and Juliet, Faust, and all that fun stuff. So I listened to the arias and I was like, oh, I want to do that too. And so fast forward to when orientation day um at New
Oh,
World.
hi. Oh yeah,
Yeah,
okay. So
of New World. It's okay. Orientation day. It's like, everybody puts on their best face and which is fun. But I got a chance to see a lovely soprano sing Juliet's Waltz, and I was just enamored. And I was like, I want to be able to sing like that. I want to be able to do that aria. And then get coming into New World. I think the summer before I officially started at New World. Um, I emailed my one of my former voice teachers there, and a bunch of questions about what is a lyric soprano, what is a lyric coloratura soprano, what's a coloratura soprano, what's a dramatic coloratura soprano. I didn't know any of this stuff, and so he was just like, "Okay, I think I bugged him to death." I'm sorry, and he he just gave me a list of singers to listen to. Kathleen Battle, let me see, Kathleen Battle, Sumi Joe, Edith Gruberova, Anna Mofo, Anna Chapko. It just the list went on. He's like, just listen to all of them, and not just the sopranos. Listen to some men as well. Listen to some mezzo sopranos, and we'll talk when we get here. And I was like, okay. So I became enamored with some of like the coloratura repertoire, and I just forgot about the lyric rep for a while. And I was like, this is interesting. This is really cool. And it wasn't until my first voice lesson at New World that the other voice teacher I studied with there was like only two on staff. And we were vocalizing, and then I don't know, we were just fooling around at the top. And she's like, interesting. And she just kept going. And I know she was going higher in the piano. I was like, you can come back down now. I didn't know how high I was going, but I was getting kind of scared, but I just let it go. And she's like, interesting. So then he walks through the door and she's like, show him what you just learned. And I was like, okay. So I did. And he was like, oh, you just went into whistle register. That's interesting. He's like, I think you're a coloratura soprano. I was like, I'm a what? A what? And after I did my research, I was like, so basically, I'm the Mariah Carey of opera. If because that was the only correlation I can think of.
Okay.
And I wanted to know more about this voice type. And I did my research again, and I was like, okay, let's play around and see what I can do with this. I understood what coloratura was. I understood what the runs were. I understood the characters and everything. It was pretty much who I am. But then I was still leaning back to the dramatic rep, and that's where Shirley came in. And she's like, I think you're more than that. I think you're more than all this Tweety Bird stuff. There's more stuff to your voice that you're ignoring. So, because I had a chest voice, which is apparently unusual for a coloratura soprano, specifically a high coloratura soprano. There's a debate about that. But I was like, let me see what my voice can really do. So she didn't just explore the higher part of my voice. We did the middle, lower part of my voice. So we started doing more of the soubrette stuff and didn't really push me more into the lyric stuff until a little bit later. And it wasn't until talking about dramatic repertoire, the only dramatics I've only touched when I was in grad school was Street Scene, the Kurt Weill opera. And I did
Which
Rose
program?
Morant. Rose Morant.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, and that was the closest to the dramatics I can get at the time. And I was like, yeah, I love doing stuff like this. I love doing the comedy and all that stuff like that, but this gives you a little bit more to play with. And then when I started studying with Birgit, she's just like, yeah, let's keep working. There's a lot more than what you're giving. And we worked and we worked. And then that's when I started discovering I can do Gilda. I can still do, the high stuff, but I can also do more of the dramatic repertoire as well. So I had more to play with than what I was actually led on to believe. It just, my curiosity is what really led me to finding out what my voice can do. And rather than just, now, that was just the opera stuff. I had to go back and play on my musical theater jazz stuff that I neglected for years. So, um, and it was nice to do that because that also opened up another thing for me to play with. So jazz has a lot of fun stuff to play with, but there's also some serious sides as well that people don't realize. So I was like, you can legitimately put that back in opera. It's just a different extension of the voice and what it can do. And once I figured that out, I was like, oh, there are so many things I can play with right now. And that's my curiosity is what led me to where I am.
Great. So, and have you done musical theater?
I did in 2018, I did the Utah Festival. And
Okay.
it's opera and musical theater, and I covered in Into the Woods, I covered Cinderella's Mother and Little Red. So that was the biggest extent of musical theater I went to. But I also covered Sally Brown and You're a Good Man, Charlie Brown, which was fun. I loved Sally Brown. And Amazing Grace was another place where I got a chance to explore my belting, which I had. I just hadn't used it in a while. And I played the role of Yema. It's a very small role. It's an African American part. And
What piece again?
Amazing Grace.
Okay.
I can't remember the composer. I think his name is Smith or something like that. But it was a musical that was on Broadway for a while, and then Hamilton hit, and that was the end of that. You never heard about Amazing Grace ever again
Okay.
because of Hamilton. Um, and yeah, that was my extensive musical theater. And then the last musical theater that I did was The Wiz, and that really tests my belting. and I loved it. And I miss it, but I love it.
I would think that, I mean, I don't know much about musical theater, but I would think that Into the Wood can be sung operatic. Uh,
The technique is there. You have to have, I think you have to have that classical or operatic technique in order to be able to sing musical theater or any genre healthy. Most people just go in there blindly, and sometimes you can find your way around it. You know what's right and what's wrong. Your body will tell you, but it's nice to have something you can fall back on. So if you do get into vocal trouble, you know how to fix it. Um, I'm glad that I went the route that I did because I can go and I can belt, but I know what my limits are because, if I do this too long, it can sacrifice this. So now that I'm on the path that I'm on right now, I don't think I want to too much go wholly into belting again. I mean, I would love to do it again just for kicks and giggles, but I love the path that I'm on right now. So, yeah.
that's it. It's at when you do belting for an extended period of time. Let's say a whole run, which it will be a couple of months. Does it
Mm-hmm.
affect a lot the classical singer?
It does because it puts you in a position where you've been singing kind of like it's like so blatantly like forward. At least that's how I describe it. It's not a placement forward. To me, it feels like it is forward. But then when I have to go back and sing like say bel canto, I have to literally reteach myself how does that sound? How does that feel? And it takes me a while to get back, but then once I get back, I'm there again. So yeah, I when I was doing that summer in 2018, I was legitimately belting for about a good 3 months. And then I had to get myself together for my Phantom audition, which was like, and then I had to get myself together for going back to singing my opera stuff. So I was like, hey, what do I do? But I wasn't too far gone that I was like, come
Right.
back.
You say Phantom auditions? You did auditions for Phantom?
I did. So a total of, let me see, I think I auditioned 3 times for Phantom. The first time was by video. The second time was, I think the second time was in 2016 live. A friend of mine, I was in New York at the time. A friend of mine called me and was like, Phantom holding a cattle call audition. You have to go. And I was like, you're joking. And then she called me again. She's like, no, get up and go. You've been talking about it forever. You need to go do it. And I was like, okay, I had nothing to lose that day, except there was a master class happening with one of the prestigious how do you say it? Artist managers. So I was
Okay.
like, Phantom artist manager. I'll go do Phantom. I really had nothing to lose that day. So I did. And it's funny that waited in that room. So I didn't have like I wasn't equity or any of that stuff. They were calling equity and non-equity at that time. And I'm sitting there in a corner by myself. I'm watching everybody. I see how everybody's very musical theatery. And I was like, this is so different from opera. It's so different from opera. Like it's challenging, I believe, because you only have about between 16 to 32 bars to show what you can do. In opera, you have about less than 10 minutes to show what you can do. If they're merciful to actually give you 10 minutes, and within the first 2 minutes they actually deem whether you're like yes or no. So I
True.
don't know what's more difficult, musical theater or opera, but at least you're given more time in opera, but
Yeah.
it's the same, I guess. And I waited all day, and I didn't realize that they were having Hamilton auditions that day as well. So
In
half of the people that
the same
uh,
group or
in
different?
no, not the same group. I think it was in the same building, I
Okay.
guess. But I was trying to figure out why half of the room was gone, and I heard somebody say they're holding Hamilton auditions, so they just left, and I got moved up. So I was in the last group, and they just after they called my name, they're just like, "We're not hearing anybody else. Leave your resume here on the table." And I was the last group to go to be heard that day.
Wow.
Nothing came of it, but fast forward to 2018, and I got a notification saying, hey, we're doing auditions for the Phantom World Tour. And I already heard talk that they already had their Christine, which was Megan. But I wasn't sure if that was solidified or not. But a friend of a friend of a friend told me, it was like, oh, it's solidified, but we're going to hold auditions anyway. I don't know how true that is. But anyways, um, I said, I'll give it a shot. So I sent in Carlotta, because I was playing around with it, and I got a call back for Christine, and I sent in that tape, and then I actually legitimately got an actual live call back saying, "Hey, we want you in New York.
Oh
Can you
wow.
can you come in an audition for the swing Carlotta?" And I said, "Sure." I flew in one day to go home. And I packed the day bag and flew out the next day to go to New York. It was like the quickest turnaround of my life.
Where were
And
you?
I was in Utah. I flew home a day early to get home to dump everything and put a day bag together. I got up the next morning and I flew to New York from Florida to New York. And I found a
Exciting.
place I found a place to warm up, and then I got to Pearl Studios. And okay, this I think this is where I kind of made a mistake, but I wasn't sure. I'm all like operaed out. So I'm like in my dress, in my jewels and everything, because I was like, well, she's a diva. Like, let's see what happens. But I walk in and it's like everybody's not dressed that way. It's like, oh dear, did I just walk into the wrong building? But I saw two other girls who were kind of dressed up to, like, as a diva should. But every other girl was like, I just come in a day dress and some flats and my hair pulled back. And I'm like, oh, so y'all are the Christines and we're the Coladas. I get it. And I walked in, it was a panel of people. I sang my thing. They said, "Thank you very much. It was nice to see you again." And I walked out and I was like, that was the most bizarre audition I've ever done, but it was fun. Nothing came of it, but I was glad I got a chance to audition live for the Phantom cast of the World Tour. And as everybody know, that the World Tour was wonderful, and everybody who was in that cast was phenomenal. So yeah, well, I was happy to do
Right.
that.
That's
Yeah.
good. I mean, in any case, you obviously when you sang, you sang very operatic. So the fact that you presented yourself the way we are used to see uh, operatic auditions or auditions for opera, I mean, it makes sense anyway. And they say, oh, you're obviously used to do that track of audition. So
Yeah.
I think for Carlota that is good. As you know, as we know, but for Raquel, I mean, she was assistant of Fleming, and she never done any musical theater. She grew
Hmm.
up in Netherlands and studied at Manhattan Voice, and so I think the operatic part of Phantom is very much so. So going, I think you wouldn't worry about having that outfit because I think that it's exactly what they kind of expect anyway. So
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
good. So you have a strong connection with Phantom since like regularly. So
Yeah.
it seems to be like your dream role.
It was my dream role.
What is your
If
dream role now?
um it's a right now it's Zerbinetta in
Okay.
Ariadne.
Oh wow.
It's because I did the aria. I when I learned the aria 2 years ago, was it 2 years ago? 2 or 3 years ago. Um, I first heard it when I was in college, and I was like, this is the most difficult thing I've ever heard. And something in my brain was like, you should do it. So I foolishly tried to attempt to do it in grad school. I got in a practice room and I tried to learn it, and I just sat there at the piano, just very defeated because I was like, I can't do this. This is so hard. But I wasn't ready for it. I technically was not ready for it. Mentally, I was, but technically, I was not. And it wasn't until around the year of 2018, 2019 that that's when I was like, I can start working on it now. I think I can start tackling it. And my teacher was like, yeah, you can definitely do it, but you need to work. So I worked and I worked and I said, now I want to do the roles. But there are other roles I'd like to sing, like Marie from Daughter of the Regiment. I'd love to do a lot of the Ina Etta roles as well, like Norina. I did a Despina. I would love to sing her again. Zerlina. And even some of the bigger bel canto roles, if I can, if I'm supposed to be moving in that direction, I'd love to sing an Amina, a Lucia, and what's that other big one that's over there, Elvira and Ipuritani. I fell in love with that when the Trepco did it at the Met. I was like, oh my gosh, this is beautiful. Like, I'd love to sing that. She has a beautiful mouth scene, like, ha. So yeah, I mean, there are so many other things. Even like, I mean, I did a Pamina before, but it was in English. But I would love to sing her and like in a different setting, and just so many different roles out there. Um, that I would love to explore and see what I would like to get myself into. And I know what are my limits, and I know what are like, what to stay away from. So and my instincts have been pretty good at telling me what's what. So yeah.
Good. So and so we did and you did a piece recently, a new piece. It's so very different from your Inas and Etas. And so you did tell us, actually that was, I mean, obviously not your first time in Orlando because we did Fledermaus. Did
Hmm.
you do
Yeah,
something
yeah.
in Orlando before Fledermaus?
No, that was my first time doing something in Orlando.
Oh, that's nice to be back
Yeah.
home. Were you staying home or were you? Do you have family still in Orlando?
No, I do not.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
So you were not still at home. So
Mm.
and what did you just did also this year with Upper Orlando?
So, so Opera Orlando had me come back to do the first world premiere of The Secret River, Calpurnia. I guess you can put her with the Inas, but it doesn't count. And she's like a 12-year-old girl who I don't even know if the book is here in this library, um but it's based off of a children's book written by Marjorie Kinnan Rawlings. It was published posthumously after she had passed away, and it was interesting that Stella Sung and Mark Campbell found the book and they decided to turn this children's opera into, I'm sorry, it's a children's story into an opera. And Calpurnia basically not finds, but she's in a situation where her village is in trouble, and nobody knows the solution. Nobody knows how to solve the problem. It's like there's no fish to sell, so the community is dying in a sense. So Calpurnia is like, well, I'm going to go find a place where we can, I'll save the village myself, kind of thing. She's very determined, and she wants to be a poet when she grows up, which I thought was really nice. So I was like, oh, and she finds this secret river because there's an old sage in her village that says, I know of a place where you can find all the fish in the world, and it's a secret place, and it only appears if once it's needed. And Calpurnia follows her nose through the forest, and she finds this river teeming with lots of catfish. She catches them all with the paper roses in her hair, and her and her little pet dog companion, which is in the book called Buggy Horse, but we changed it to Mr. Splinters, and I still have him at I wish I could have showed it to you guys, but I still have Mr. Splinters at home. And
What kind of pet is that?
He's a so in the book he's a real dog, but in our production he's a toy dog. So back in the Depression era, kids would play with like, anything that you can make into something of a toy. So Mark Campbell came up with the idea of like, we can't get a real dog on stage, so we'll make a toy dog, and he's made out of sticks and wood and cans. At least the first version we had, that I now own, is nothing but like a can and wire and screws and sticks. And I love him.
Yeah.
He's mine.
Yeah.
And she finds this river. She takes the catfish back through the forest, but she gets lost, and she's confronted by a bear, an owl, and a panther. And instead of panicking, she uses her wits to actually like, oh my gosh, the everything is affected by this so-called like, drought. I'll give you a fish and you can have a fish and you can have a fish. And that's act of kindness. She spreads that out to the animals of the forest. And they don't say thank you, of course, but she just figured, like it's fine, it's all right. We can still show kindness to everybody. And she saves her village. At the end of the story, she tries to go back to find the secret river, but Mother Albertha, the old sage, was just like, it doesn't appear when, like, for greed or anything. It appears when you need it most. But just always remember that the secret river is within you, and that's a metaphor. It's saying that any problem in the world can be solved if you just look deep within yourself. You have the answer to the problem, and I thought that was really neat to finally have an opera that's very encouraging to young kids and families alike, and that was very special for me to be able to finally create something that's totally new and put your own identity into it. And even during a time of COVID, we really needed a story like that.
Right.
So, yeah.
That's great. It's were the composer with you guys or
that was the beauty of it. The composer and the librettist was there every step of the way, and we made changes. I mean, this thing was much longer than what we premiered, and when we first did like a workshop version of it, they went away and they were just like, okay, that doesn't work. So by the time I came back, half of the score was cut, like it was from this to this. So I was like, okay, so all of that section is gone, and words were changed, things were added in to kind of elongate like emotional stuff. Between the family and Calpurnia, and then we also had the river scene, which was very extended. They had to cut that down because I was like, nobody's going to sit through this, because it was really really long. Um, but when and it was nice to be
What is the river scene?
the river scene was basically Calpurnia trying to find her way through the forest. She didn't in the book she follows her nose, and what that means is that um like a rabbit would pass by, like goes to the left, she would follow the rabbit that way, or a bird would fly to the to the right, she would follow it this way, and eventually it led her to the river. In our version, she's completely lost and she doesn't know where to go. So she hears the voices of the forest telling her, go this way. She's like, is it to the rock? Is it to the log? Is it to where the light is? Where is it? And she remembers with what Mother Alberta told her in the scene before, follow your feelings, what does your feelings tell you? She's like, oh, go this way. And then it leads her exactly to the secret river, and you see the river creatures coming out, the alligator, well, the alligator, the turtles, the fishies, everybody's coming in. And she remembers exactly what Mother Alberta taught her, but then she doesn't see the fish at all until one pops by, and she's just like, there's one and there's another one, there's a whole teeming of fish. And that's that whole scene. And then the forest scene happens again where she meets the three animals, and then she works her way out of there. So that was that was such a wonderful, wonderful moment in my life. I'll never forget it as long as I live. Yeah.
How long is the piece? The way you perform it?
I think it's about maybe an hour, 2 hours tops. It wasn't that long. It was pretty short.
I mean, there's a big difference between an hour and 2 hours. Is it
Yeah.
closer to
It,
one or closer to two, do you think?
I want to say maybe it's an hour and a half. I really don't remember.
Did you guys do it with intermission or just
There's
nice?
no intermission.
Okay, so yeah, an hour and a half, I would say. No,
Probably an
good,
hour and a half. But
good.
it's really good.
And how many characters? I mean, how many other people were with you? It seems like you said that the bear and they don't talk.
They don't. We use puppets for the animals, which I thought was really
Good.
cool. And Michel Lee Puppets of Orlando, they came up with these pretty cool um, abstract puppetries. So household items became the bear or the panther or the owl. So the owl for us, what I found, which was the correlation, the owl for us represented Mother Albertha. The bear was the mother, and the panther was Mr. Splinters because he was made up of just nothing but sticks. And I was like, well, this is interesting. And the out in my rehearsal, the bear scared me. I'm legit. He scared me. If I can find that video, I'll post it. But it was kind of funny. Um, we had a cast of, I think, maybe 6 people, if
Okay.
I'm not mistaken. And we had a children's chorus as well.
Oh, cute.
So, yeah, it's really neat. And it's a small chamber orchestra as well. So it can be done pretty much anywhere, and it's very relatable. It's in English, so anybody can listen to it and watch it and understand the story of it all. Yeah,
And what
it's
kind of
very
music
relatable.
is? What's the style of the music?
The style, I would say, is very like it's very Disney-esque, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Because they're like little earworm music. I can't really sing because I'm in the library, but um once you get a melody in your ear, it stays, like it doesn't disappear, like it stays there. And there's like about four of them that happens in the opera, maybe more than that. But once it's in your ear, you're like, oh, yep, yep, I know that tune. It's not hard to listen to. It's very easy.
Great, great. And so I mean, we are doing this year in Savannah the world premiere of a piece by Michael Ching.
Mhm.
It's um, I mean, we premiere each part, and Alice Riley is the first half, and Anna Hunter is the second half,
Hmm.
and you're covering the role of Cortina in Anna Hunter, which we have Marquita Lister
Nice.
singing the role, which is very, 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 very proud and happy to have her. And so we are familiar with the idea of the process of creating a new piece.
Hmm.
Savannah commissioned this world, and working with Michael is always a joy. Have you worked with Michael Ching?
The only time I worked with Michael Ching was the last time I was in Savannah, which was in
Oh, right,
January.
right.
So
There was I don't know if the last time, but certainly, I don't know if it was the first time, but certainly it was the last time.
yeah.
And we were supposed to be doing a concert with a lot of people, and we couldn't. We had to do all kind of remotely, except for you guys that were in the African Museum. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
right. So you know him as a pianist.
Yeah.
He's quite accomplished. I mean, he's a pianist, a conductor. He was a coach. He worked in Florida. Actually, that's where he started in Florida Grand Opera,
Hmm.
and then he became the general director of Memphis, and but always interested in composition. In fact, it seems like he did all the things that he did just to be prepared to compose.
Yeah.
And he's great at writing operas. He writes so many, and so we're happy with that. And it's good that there are so many operas happening, and there's a trend these days in America to produce new opera, and they're very successful. The audience respond well to them. They are operas that people want to watch and hear, and the themes are connected to the audience, and
Hmm.
so I think they're very. It's a great situation that we're doing right now. I mean, this was not happening 20 or 10 years ago. I mean, 10
Yeah.
years, yes, but it's something that has been growing and growing, and the companies actually are trusting the idea of doing new opera more and more, and they are successful. I mean, not just well, financially and audience wise. I mean,
Hmm.
I think that the audience are interesting to see opera. One comment I remember from the former general director of Santa Fe Opera. He said, the audience, uh, they just go to see a show. They don't know the standard repertoire necessarily.
Right.
So it's, I mean, certainly the Traviatas and the Bohème, but when it comes to Ariadne of Naxos, it's the same for them to do Ariadne or to do
Hmm.
Pagliacci almost, or to do the Secret River. It's the most of the people we don't know any of those. So
Hmm.
I think it had to do with how they enjoy the piece and what to do. How was the audience reaction in Orlando with the Sugar River?
So the first night when we opened, they told me it was sold out, and I was like, "Wait, what?" I didn't know it was that big of a deal.
Which
Because
the
this
space? Where were you doing it?
we were at the Dr. Phillips Center and the Pew Theater. It's a very small
Oh,
theater.
yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah,
That was
yeah.
my first show there. I did the Hoffman in the theater. It's charming.
Hmm.
It's very. I like it is that it has a three levels. So this idea of a mini horseshoe
Yeah,
theater, it's great. It's
yeah.
very. And it's
That
not that small, so that's great.
Yeah, well, I liked it because it was more intimate. And for an opera like The Secret River, we needed it on a stage like that. So the audience can feel like you're actually touching the story itself. And the staging, which I found really interesting, was that I forgot who came up with the design, but they look like looses of sheets of paper. And you see the at the beginning of the opera, you actually see the writer, Marjorie, writing out a story, and she cannot figure out what to write, and you actually see the writing happening on the stage. So it's like, it's something that's so unique, and everybody was like, oh, I get it. They just somehow are able to touch and feel and relate to that in a very intimate way. And I think certain, I don't know if if this is the trend also happening, but it just maybe chamber opera in America is becoming a little bit more intimate to reach people that way. And so it can be more relatable and be more tangible rather than off and afar on a pedestal and be like, don't touch me, I am more pristine than you. It's like, no, we're telling human stories. If it doesn't matter if it's a fairy tale or not, there's still a morality behind it, and everybody can learn from that story, whether it's Don Giovanni or something as brand new as the Secret River, or even the one I did in DC recently, Why I Live at the Post Office, or the PO. That one was also very intimate as well, and a very small theater, the Kimball Theater in DC. And again, tangible, maybe not as tangible as the Pew Theater was, but it's still tangible enough so people can understand. I know exactly who that is in my family. I know who that character. I'm definitely that character in that family. So, and I think that's what we as opera singers and artists need to always remember. Yes, we have the voice. Yes, we have to study the music and the language and everything, but we have to also remind ourselves that we have to communicate to the audience. We have to tell the story to the audience and understand, like, hey, I'm telling your story on stage, and this is also part of my life as well because this happened to me, or I know somebody that this happened to, and that's the beauty of it, I find. So yeah.
Right.
Mhm.
Good, good. Yeah, it's true. It's true. So I'm happy that you're coming to Savannah to cover that, and then also you're going to be doing several performances, the recitals, and
Mhm.
you'll be in the song recital and the sacred concert, and you're also the narrator also a new piece that Peter
Yes.
Blake created, which is the story of Mario Lanza called "Be My Love," and for that
Yeah.
one you mostly be acting and but singing a bit. So how is that? How are your acting chops being challenged by this piece?
Okay, so I'm glad you shared what you shared with me, the resources you shared with me, and I spoke with Peter as well. Um, the It's an interesting take on a legend that I knew of, but I didn't know this well of, and I'm like, I'm excited to be able to present this, to be a part of this as well. So I'm looking at the script and I'm reading the script and I'm like, okay, yep, yep. I can't wait to share this story with everyone. It's really relatable, and it's very touching, and it's very tragic at the same time too. So I hope that when people when they hear the story of Mario Lanza, that they appreciate his life and his legacy that he left, and that they just appreciate the art form more.
Great. It is a fascinating story. His story really being so famous and so tumultuous, and how much he was looking to be part of the opera world and all he tried, but also with the incredible effect of the movie world, which
Mhm.
made him famous.
Yeah.
But also the way that Peter approached with making it this other character talk about her grandfather. So it's very touching and very interesting, and make us think in the veterans and their life experience. It's really there's a lot of layers more than just great Italian arias, don't you think?
Yeah. Yeah.
Good, good, good. Excellent. Well, Kenny, we are at time. Thank you so much for being with us. It was fun to talking and to get to know you better and to share your story with Savannah. And we are looking forward to seeing you in Savannah for an extended time. And the audience will love you, and we love you. So.
Thank you. I'm looking forward to it.
Thank you, thank you. All right, guys, and everyone, thank you for joining us, and I will see you next week when we talk to other voices of the festival. Thank you so much. Bye.